So in the last episode we made this. There are a few issues with this actually, namely these funny little marks here. These are where the resin and the filler wasn't mixed properly and they're actually leaching some sort of chemicals, which isn't good. So I had to think about it and I decided to make another version. So I've made this one off camera. It's a lot better, it's a lot neater, and this is what we're going to use. So welcome everybody to Creative Making. My name's Pete, and in this video I'm going to be making the mould. Okay, so we're going to need some sculpting tools for this. This is my box of random sculpting tools. These are the ones that I use the most. There's all kinds of things in there. If you're not quite sure what sculpting tools to use, check the link up here. It'll take you to a video where I explain what tools are used for. So for the sculpting I'm going to need to use this. This is our sculpting core. And we're going to sculpt around the eye and cheek bit here, so we're not going to use a lot of clay. I'm just going to make like a smashed up eye. To sculpt that, I'm going to be using Chavant NSP Medium, which is this. And this is my favourite clay, and in this particular colour as well. It's just a really nice all-round clay, but you can use whatever you want. So the first thing we need to do then is we need to get it open and cut some of that off. We don't need much. First thing I always do is just try and soften it up a little bit just in my hands, and then to start the sculpting I'm just using little blobs of clay. So with the clay I'm just kind of building up rough outline. Normally I would use some reference for this. I couldn't find any reference for a specific eye thing, so off camera I've got some pictures of injuries and wounds that I'm kind of just looking at briefly, just using them as inspiration. So with the sculpting then, you get all the blobs on, and then I use this twisted brass tool, and I'm also going to use that to go all the way around the edges. Mainly this tool is just to bring all those blobs of clay together in one big blob, but you can see here I'm just kind of going around the edges and starting to blend that into the core. Once I've done that, I'll then go on to a finer rake. These are beautiful tools I get from the old Monstrosity shop. I'll leave a link below. So here's an even finer rake. And all the time what I'm doing is I'm just refining the surface down using finer and finer rakes. At the same time I'm just adding little bits of clay, I'm blending it into the core, and I'm just making sure that it kind of blends in nicely. If you've got a big old step on the edge of your sculpt, you're going to have that in your actual prosthetic. Okay, so now I've got that blocked out, the next thing is to think about what I want to do wound wise. So here I'm just using a tool and I'm just kind of carving in some of the wounds. I'm not being particularly careful. There you can see all those wounds roughly carved in. Now at the moment these wounds are all kind of at a similar level, so what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some little bits of clay here and there, and it's just to give me lots of different variations. You can see from this shot they're not all flat. I've got little bits here that are raised and bits that are pushed in, and trying to get a bit of variation in this to make it interesting. So I'm just going to continue a little bit tooling this sculpture, just try and get it looking all right. Just keep on working into it. I'm going in with an even finer wire rake now, and this is really to get that surface refined. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to end up using some lighter fluid. So lighter fluid will melt the surface of this clay really well. So I'm going to take some lighter fluid, and with that I'm going to dip a brush in and I'm going to brush over the surface of the sculpt. What this will do is it'll kind of smooth out any tool marks that are left in there. So I'm not looking to dissolve too much of the edge. Once I've got those tool marks out, I generally use a little sponge. This one on a stick is great, and I'll dip the sponge into the lighter fluid, and then I'll just literally stipple the surface. And what that does is that starts off the skin texture, and you can see as I'm stippling this, there's a really fine, natural, organic skin texture. But what it's also doing, as you can see, it's rounding the edges of the wound. It's actually, you can see it better there. You don't want sharp edges to your wounds. I think I've said in a previous video that bullet holes don't look like volcanoes, so just be really careful with your edges of your wound. While that's off drying, I'm just going to pop some little bits of clay in this plastic container. And the reason for this is because I want to make myself a slurry, kind of a liquid version of that clay. So we put lots of little parts into this pot. And then on top of that, I'm pouring a load of lighter fluid. What I generally do with this is I'll just pop it to one side and I'll let that lighter fluid start to dissolve the clay. Okay, so while that slurry is dissolving, I just want to go in and do some pour texture. I want to try and copy, or at least match, the texture on my life cast. So for this I'm just using some plastic, and that tool there, it's got like 4 little nails in the end, so I'm using it to stipple texture in. Once I've done that, I'm just going to take a little bit of the lighter fluid out of that slurry, and I'm just going to stipple over the whole thing. And the whole idea of this is to try and soften any texture down so it's more natural and organic. I don't want anything to look too sharp on this because it looks unnatural if you have sharp detail. So everything's got to be round and soft and natural. Okay, so that slurry's had a little bit of time to sit there, and I'm just going to mix it in, try and dissolve it a bit more. I mean, sometimes I'll leave this overnight, but what I want is I want to try and maintain some little bumps and lumps in there, and you'll see why in a minute. Now the slurry is dissolved and nice and creamy, still with some little bumps in there, I'm going to take one of these chip brushes and I'm going to cut this down. The reason I'm doing this is because texture on our skin isn't just one texture all over, it's made up of all kinds of little bumps and lumps. I'm going to pop some gloves on and I'm just going to dip that chip brush into some of that slurry. And then I'm going to stipple or spray that slurry all over the surface of the sculpt. So this will give me really nice organic chaos. Little tiny microscopic bumps. You might not necessarily see them, but the devil is in the detail. It'll really help sell this. So I continue flicking some of this slurry over the surface of the sculpt, and once I'm happy, I generally just let that sit for a while for that lighter fluid to flash off. Another thing that I use the slurry for is here at the bottom of these wounds, it's pretty flat, so I want really chaotic organic randomness. So to do that I use this slurry, and this is why I wanted to leave some lumps in there still, because this represents the interior of the wound. So I'm just using a tiny little sculpting tool there, and as you can see I'm just putting little tiny bits of clay into the wound. I'm not trying to be neat, I'm just popping it in as random as possible. So now that's done, we need to start flashing up. So here I'm just showing you the distance between the edge of the sculpture and the beginning of the flashing up. To do that flashing up, I'm going to need to roll out some clay. And to do that, I'm going to use this Sculptex Extra Soft. But I can either use a pasta roller like this one, or this is my favourite, this is a clay extruder. I've actually modified this so that will fit into my electric drill. Work hard. No, hang on. Work wise, not hard, or whatever the saying is. So with that electric drill, it just pushes a plunger in there. Let's have a look at the difference anyway. So first of all, we just need to pop a little bit of clay down that extruder. And then you see you get these patterns to go in the end. This one's particularly good. That just pops in that lid. And then that screws on nice and slick, just like that. And then when I turn the drill, it pushes it and you see you get that, you get that nice thin strip of clay extruded. Now, if you don't have one of those, another option is to use a pasta roller. This is one that I've used for years for super sculpting, and this is great, but it's just a lot more work because you can only roll small pieces and then each one of them you're having to cut up. You need lots of these pieces. Yeah, it's just too much work, so we're not going to use that. We're going to use this. Okay, so I'm just going to extrude a load of this, just bear with me. We've got all that extruded, so to put this on, it's pretty simple. We want to be a few millimeters away from the edge of the prosthetic. The distance will dictate how much cap plastic you've got later on to dissolve into the skin. So I generally go between 0.5 centimetre and a full centimetre, somewhere around there. And as you can see, I'm just gently teasing it around. It needs to follow the line of the edge of the prosthetic, nice and neat. And I'm just gently pushing it down onto the core. And I'll just keep on doing that until the whole thing is covered, apart from those little keys. So once that's covered, I'm just going to smooth it all out, and there you go. You can also see on here I've punched these little holes, and these are little touchdowns. This is where the mould will touch the core. So around this edge here, we need to just kind of trim this at a slight angle, so it angles slightly away from the prosthetic. So you can see here that it's a lot neater and it's all angled away from the prosthetic. Back to a nice clean board, and I'm about to continue to prepare this for moulding. The first thing I need to do is I need to actually put a bed of clay around this piece. I want the mould and the back of the core to be different levels, and to do that I need to put a bed of clay around this. I need to go all the way around the edges there. I'm going to use this Sculptex Extra Soft. So I'm literally just going to cut some big chunks of this, and I'm going to work my way around the edge. It's not difficult, but you just need to take your time and make sure everything fits right. Once this goes around the edge, we need to clean it all up and blend it all together so it looks like one cohesive piece. Just use some sharp knives, just be really careful. And there you go, so that's it done, and we're ready to mould. So in order to mould, I need to put my walls around this so they're straight up and higher than the highest point of that core. I've trimmed them down a little bit, and I'm using those same mould walls that I used in the previous video. All fits, and then clamp that together. Now you can see in here around that edge there's a little gap, so what I've used there is I've just used some Vaseline and up those corners as well, and that Vaseline just blocks everything up and it prevents any of the resin pouring down there. I just need to give it a squirt of Ease Release 200 as well. I've already done one actually, this is the second squirt. More or less ready, but what I want to do here is I want to use some Ease Release 205. Now this is a liquid version of the aerosol, and the reason I'm using that is anything that I can see that's blue, I want to just put some extra Mould Release on that. Basically the resin that we use for the core is the same as we use for the mould, and those guys will absolutely bond together. Okay, so same as we did before for the resin, we're going to use some blue pigment, some Smooth Cast 300, and we're going to use some of this aluminium trihydrate. Let's decant all that out. So we're going to go for 350ml of each volumetrically. So that's the aluminium trihydrate. We're going to go in with part B, 350ml. And then we'll also dispense 350ml of part A. Cool, I'm going to use this little metal mixer on my drill to help me mix it as well. So let's get them all in a big cup. So there's the ATH. That's the part B. And then I want to combine this before I put the part A in. So using a stick to start it off, and then once that's started off I'm going to put some pigment in, and then I'm going to get the whisk in there. Just be careful using these whisks, because if your drill goes too mad, this resin will go everywhere. Part A goes in. And then I'm also going to give it a final stir with a stick, just to be 100% sure. So you've got to work fairly quick with this because the resin is now curing. First thing I do is go in with a brush into all the nooks and crannies, then I'll pour the rest in. This stuff is curing like crazy. And that's the mould done, essentially. That's all cured, nice and hard. And it just leaves us to demould it now. What I didn't mention is I did hot glue around those mould walls. So to actually pull this open, it shouldn't be too hard, but you can see the difference in height there. That's caused by that flat plate of clay around the edge. It just makes life easier when it comes to demould. And that's pretty much it. Let's just open it and have a look. And there we go. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to actually be casting into this mould. So thanks very much everybody for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate you watching them and your feedback and all that kind of stuff. Please feel free to share, like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And I shall see you soon in the final part of this 4-part series. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.